And good afternoon and happy birthday, first and foremost, to Steeler legend Mean Joe Green as he turns 77 today as he celebrates his birthday. Former four-time Super Bowl champion, two-time Defensive Player of the Year, the team leader in Pro Bowls with 10. He was also a for Mean Joe Green too. He was also a four-time All-Pro as he turns 77 once again. Happy birthday early on to Mean Joe Green, one of the early cornerstone pieces for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Long before they started getting on the roll with guys like Terry Bradshaw, Mel Blount, Jack Cam, and of course Franco Harris, and then leading on to that historic 1974 NFL draft basically in that year, which that draft would feature in that year back in 1974, which really set the standard for this franchise for a long time, and where they selected four Hall of Famers in that draft. Of course, with their first pick in the 21st overall, Lynn Swann, Jack Lambert in the second round, as well as John Stallworth in the fourth round, the second wide receiver selected, and then their center, Mike Webster. Of all those guys, it would be Jack Lambert, who will be the only first ballot Hall of Famer in that draft. But anyway, Steelers right now looking trying to get keep a two-game winning streak right now, trying to get a game above 500. They'll have their task at hand tonight as they'll be visiting in Las Vegas, looking for their first win on the road versus the Raiders. The last time they ever did that was back in 1995. It's been a long time right there. And Bill Cowher's the only one out of all the Steelers coaches that was undefeated on the road versus the Raiders in back-to-back years back in 1994 and 1995 as we look at it. And those years right there, too, Steelers won those games in convincing fashion. 1994, the final year that the Raiders were in Los Angeles at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum before they moved back to Oakland for the next 25 years. They defeated them 21-3 in 94. Then again in 1995, 29-10, only surrendering a combined 13 points in back-to-back of those seasons right there. So Steelers Raiders, fun rivalry, but especially unfortunately for the Steelers when they gotta go visit them in the history of this rivalry, has not been very in favor of them at all. They are 4-8 on the road visiting the Raiders, 4-8, which also includes only one playoff win, which was the 1974 AFC Championship game, which set up their eventual run of two back-to-back Super Bowl runs right there, which enabled four and be crowned team of the decade. Career-wise, they are 5-11 when visiting Oakland and Los Angeles. Be their first time visiting them in Las Vegas. And good afternoon, everybody. I am Charles Prodigy Richey, host of the Metal Steel podcast. We get ready for this edition of Show Blitz of the Steelers versus Raiders pregame show. As we look at right now, tonight you'll be hearing Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth. They'll be having the call tonight, as we all know. And as we also look at too for the Sunday night NFL football crew, their media coverage once again. For people who are keeping up with the NFL this year, you're going to be also having Terry McCauley, who's going to be the rules analyst, studio and sideline teams for Football Night in America, which starts at 7 Eastern each night, will be hosted by Maria Taylor, Chris Sims, Tony Dungy, Rodney Harrison, Jason Garrett, Devin McCourty, Mike Florio, Matthew Berry, and Jack Collinsworth will provide pregame insight and a recap of the days earlier, actually catch them throughout the season, their rotating cast. As we look at also on NBC Sports this year, they'll be covering 18 regular season games. They'll be having the prime time game on Thanksgiving, and plus Peacock will get an exclusive game when the Bills visit the Chargers in Week 16. Plus, NBC and Peacock will broadcast two games on Super Wild Card weekend and the divisional game. Now going to tonight's game, of course, Jason Garrett, he doesn't see the balance with the Steelers right now. All he seems is an offense, unlike the defense, searching for an identity. Now, of course, the former Dallas Cowboys head coach and backup quarterback in his career, more particularly with the Cowboys, uh, Jason Garrett and company, who will be looking at this team closely when they visit the Raiders. Raiders, right once again, right now are dead last in scoring of 116 plays from 25 drives for 60%. That has got to change in a hurry tonight. And Jason Creer was quoted in saying, one of the things Pittsburgh can play to is their defense, as he was saying over the phone the other day, earlier in the week. They have elite players over there. TJ Watt is something else. It seems every week he does something that impacts the game. They're going to have to win games a little bit like that for a while they continue to grow offensively. For me, the biggest thing that was always so impressive about them is they have such a strong identity on defense. They consistently show up, and they showed up again the other night, making the game-changing plays. To me, that always gives them a great chance to have success. They're searching for that identity, said Garrett, who was head coach for the Cowboys for about 9 seasons, the team's second longest tenure coach behind Tom Landry, Hall of Famer and two-time Super Bowl champion. When you have a player like Ben Roethlisberger for so long, he could be a guy who kind of guides what you do offensively. I really like the quarterback when Garrett was talking about Kenny Pickett. And he's started 9 games in his career and posted a 6-3 record. Garrett did, and from what I've seen of Pickett, Garrett was saying he has everything you want in a young quarterback. To me, just have patience with him and what they're trying to do. And now that is definitely going to be the thing right there too. And going into this game right now too, I mean, one of the biggest themes throughout the week, which has been dating back to the Monday Night Football game that happened on ABC and ESPN, was the fact you would hear earlier on throughout the game, especially too in the fourth and stuff. But anyway, just trying to uh, concentrate on the game, and not many of the players really got too much wind of it, but the fire Matt Canada a chance as we looked at it. And that's one of the things right now the Steelers are going to have to find a way to bail out, because right now, they're going to be having to deal with this him being the headline throughout media. But I mean, at the same time, too, I mean, let's call it what it is right now. The Steelers have just been mediocre under Matt Canada. It has not been looking pretty at all for him as he tries to establish himself as their coordinator when we look at things. I mean, when you think about it, too, I mean, for like points for, the highest they ever got under Canada, and it wasn't even really nothing to brag about. But in Ben Roethlisberger's final year, they were 21st in the league in points scored. Ever since then, 26 back-to-back years for scoring points. And I mean, I think the only positive thing you can say so far has been their ability. I mean, right now, too, when you take a look at it, has been the fact that they've been able to get some first downs. Now, their middle of the pack basically needs to be a lot more improved. But when you look at it too, I think the one thing that people are still hanging their head on is the fact that Kenny Pickett last season, he did finish 2 consecutive games, first the Ravens, and the Raiders the week before, where he scored in the final minute of the game and where he threw a touchdown pass. He was the only quarterback in the history to do that in this league, basically, as a rookie quarterback. But also, too, I mean, when you look at a guy like Kenny Pickett, who still tries to find out like how he's going to continue to grow, see what kind of future you have with him. I mean, Pickett, who last year comes off a year where he had, which has been harped on all through this offseason, 3 fourth quarter comebacks and 4 game-winning drives. Now, people will still tend to look at him, his small hands. I still think he's still got a lot more excitement to play. I think the only part that's just been a disappointing trend, number one, has been the amount of sacks by the offensive line right now. I mean, he got sacked 27 times last year through 13 games, being dropped for a loss of 182 yards. And then this year so far, 7 sacks being surrendered for a loss of 56 yards. That would be the biggest problem that would concern me handling for this young quarterback. But remember, Kenny Pickett, he is a guy too who went to bat for a guy like Matt Canada. He really believes that he showed a lot of confidence in him. They could be do some special things together. Only time will continue to tell that. But at the same time, too, I think they're doing a disservice to Kenny Pickett by putting a lot of it on him, too, because the biggest problem with the Steelers right now, they have not been able to mix it up a little bit more, take some of that load off him. Instead, I mean, for this season in particular, when you look at where they're at, I mean, off like 114 total plays right now, you only have 76 of those plays, which have been pass attempts, and then 31 rushing attempts. That is clearly way off right there. Not enough mixture. Now, I know Najee Harris has not been the most encouraging one. Watching with the eye test right now. I mean, only for 2 games, he's only got 74 yards. I mean, he's still unbelievably their team's leading yards per attempt leader with 4.6. So it's not like he's struggling that bad. I think, what, Najee Harris needs to get a little bit more warmed up, gets a little bit more of the ball, and I think they could do some things here. But the problem is, it's just when you have an offensive line that continues to break down right away, when you see things, they're being forced into a lot of quick situations right now. And for the Steelers right now, too, when you look at them, I mean, turnover ratio, they're only +1 in turnover ratio, which needs to be a lot more improved for the season. I mean, surrendering the ball 4 times is not been doing them any favors, especially with Kenny Pickett and his offense, too. I mean, turnover ratio, where they fall in that category going tonight's game, they are 23rd, while the Raiders are -4. They have 0 takeaways on defense, but yet they turned it over 4 times, mainly due to 3 Jimmy Garoppolo interceptions and a lost fumble. And I was talking, once again, I want to just pay big shout out and thank you for Jerry Dulac. For many of those who got to see the podcast I posted up on my YouTube channel, he joined me on this past Wednesday. Very pleasure talking with him. He definitely was very nice and definitely very perspective, and definitely seems to feel like Mike Tomlin would not be foolish enough. I mean, to keep those same sentiments, but at the same time, too. I mean, with the offensive coordinator, he says again, unless Matt Canada does something personally egregious, that's the only way they could see him being fired. But maybe throughout the season, he might take some of those play calling duties off him, put on Mike Sullivan. He'll still more than likely remain on the staff. But that's what we look at too. And for right now, Matt Canada, unfortunately, he just seems like a guy who's running with like a chicken with his head cut off. And we'll see. I mean, this is definitely a year where you look at a team like their defense, as Jason Garrett pointed out, you got some game wreckers in Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. And we look at a guy like Andrew Filipponi, who made a comment that Matt Canada is a control freak. He doesn't let assistants help him with game plan. An O-line coach quit during the season because of that. He doesn't let quarterbacks audible out of his place. He's a disaster. Shame on Tomlin. Shame on Rooney. Shame on the Steelers. That's one of the biggest indictments. It's kind of hard to argue against right now. And again, I wonder how much is that attributed to him calling plays from the booth. But I mean, at the same time, too, I mean, what do you do in this situation? I mean, Mike Tomlin is a guy who clearly likes to be loyal to his staff to a certain amount of time. But I mean, it would be foolish enough for Jerry Dulac's mind if they were to hire a new offense coordinator that he doesn't anticipate them promoting from within once again. They need to get someone badly who's well versed with today's offense in today's NFL, and we'll find out. But even though Mike Tomlin, he has said routinely said he's a part of all aspects of the team. Tuesday might have been the first time he alluded to the idea that he has more influence on the offensive game plan than a quick once over after Canada puts the final touches on it. Because remember, Mike Tomlin has also been accused of dabbling with defense too. I mean, even too, Keith Butler has definitely alluded to that after him and the Steelers parted ways after the 2021 season. Although Tomlin has a collegiate background in offense, his coaching stints at the higher levels have all been on the defensive side of the ball. So that's going to be the biggest thing right now. Can Mike Tomlin, I mean, right now, I mean, he's definitely continues to put the pressure on his coaches, but at the same time, too, it's only 2 games. Steelers are 1-1. Uh, I mean, defensively, we know what they could do, but the scoring percentage has got to stop. It is definitely really becoming alarming so far, to say the least. But let's go ahead and get back right now to the Steelers Raiders rivalry. Like I said, Raiders lead the all time rivalry 14-11. They are the only 2 teams in the history of the playoffs to meet for 5 consecutive seasons from 1972 from 1976, an NFL record that has yet to be matched. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers are looking for their first win on the road, which the Steelers have not done since 1995 under Bill Cowher, which is with Kevin Green and Greg Lloyd and company on that team right there. And of course, for the quarterback, Neil O'Donnell, and running back Bam Morris right there, when we look at. So, like I said, right now, as far as like the Steelers right now, they've only had one comeback versus the Raiders when trailing by 10 points. That was back in their final game at Three Rivers Stadium, where they trailed 17-7 in the second half. They would go on and take the lead for good 21-17 and hang on to that first to win by 1 point, 21-20. Now the Raiders had 3 comebacks at the Steelers' expense. 14-point lead, which was the biggest one so far in this rivalry, was back in the opener of the 1976 season, which the Steelers were going for a quest to three-peat, to become the first team to three-peat. The Steelers would start off the season a lot shaky. Terry Bradshaw would miss significant time that year, but you would also see right there where they would win 10 in a row, 9 games to finish out the regular season, and then a playoff victory versus Baltimore Colts, which include 5 shutouts right there in that span, and where they really muscled their way into that into the playoffs right there. Very impressive. Unfortunately, the heartbreaking thing was they would be without their running backs, Franco Harris and Rocky Blair in that rematch. You would see in that season right there, Mike Krushek, who was a quarterback that filled in for Bradshaw while he was out. He went 6-0, throwing for 758 yards and 3 interceptions in that time. Bradshaw, like I said, he only started 8 of 10 games that season, but it was pretty much all done by the defense right there. You look at, and then you have Franco Harris, Rocky Blair, each combined for over 1,000 yards, 1,128 for Franco and 1,036 for Rocky. And that was pretty much, I mean, like the end of that right there. But you look at where they go from that point in time, and the Raiders just always just seem to be getting the last laugh over the Steelers at their expense, especially when hosting the Steelers coming into their stadiums. I mean, it was definitely some heartbreaking times. You look at this rivalry right here, think of what the Steelers Ravens were not too long ago. I mean, this rivalry just really set the tone of the physical demands of the NFL. And Rocky Blair and Franco Harris together only combined for 1,000 yards. I want to say one time that was back in 1976 by each of them. I mean, other than that, too, you look at, I mean, it was definitely a fun time right there where the league was so different offensively, just pounding that ball right there. and just a special run and some seasons for that team, or where they would win 4 Super Bowl championships. Now, ever since their last Super Bowls, the Raiders have been to the playoffs 2 times, 0-2. Steelers have been to the playoffs ever since their last Super Bowl. Will be in the playoffs 7 times since that time, going 3-7 right there, while the Raiders were 0-2 once again. But anyway, like to hear your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen for tonight's game? I mean, what are the biggest concerns that illuminate entering into this game? Of course, I mean, the main thing is going to be the offense, but we'll see right now. But here we go. Just go a little bit more into the Steelers Raiders rivalry too. Some history right here. Uh, the 4 straight win streak by the Raiders over the Steelers at home matches the John Madden and Tom Flores era from 1974 1983. During that era, the Raiders were 6-3 in the regular season and 3-3 in the postseason for a career total of 9-6. In the 2000s, the Raiders hold a 1-game edge over the Steelers at 7-6, despite not being in the playoffs since the 1983 season, where the Raiders would go on to win their final Super Bowl under the LA era. Bill Cowher, right now, to date, he is the only coach as a Steeler to have a winning record versus the Raiders at 5-2, while Chuck Noll is 6-10 and Mike Tomlin is 3-5. The top 3 highest scoring games between these two have come back on October 20th, 1980, and where the Steelers would blow a 10-point lead. They will lose that game 45-34, where they combined for 79 points. And then you had November 8th, 2015, which was the second highest scoring, which was 38-35, where the Steelers came back and won that game 38-35. Remember, Ben Roethlisberger got knocked out towards the end of that game. And I meant top 3 high scoring, excuse me. But then September 23rd, 2012, Steelers would blow a 10-point lead and get shut out the rest of the way to lose that game 31-34. Now, some also special shutouts too. And the same day that Mean Joe Green is celebrating his 77th birthday. On the flip side, for the Raiders franchise, they will be honoring the late Ken Stabler, who passed away at the age of 69 back on July 8th of 2015. He was a Super Bowl champion, 4-time Pro Bowler, and an All-Pro, as well as League MVP back in 1974. It was initially reported when he passed away it was due to colon cancer, but it was soon later discovered about 7 months later by Boston University, which was reported by the New York Times, that researchers that they discovered stage 3 CTE. He is one of 345 NFL players to be discovered with CTE after their death, and where CTE is caused by repeated hits to the head. Last year, for the efforts of Raiders Al&MarkDavis and others, the Hall of Fame revises policy regarding the presentation of a ring of excellence to Atrides to elected after death. Before 2022, only individuals alive at the time of their enshrinement would receive a ring. Well, 3 iconic symbols of membership for the Hall of Fame with their incoming class, the Raiders will be proud to present the Stabler family with the Pro Football Hall of Fame Ring of Excellence on Sunday. And congratulations to him and his family right there, sharing this moment right there. Ken Stabler was definitely one of the, known as a snake. He definitely had some memorable moments in his career. But you would also look at too, right there. He's led his teams to 6 playoff appearances, 5 with the Raiders, and 1 more with the Oilers. And coincidentally, he would lose to his former team in the first round, and which his former team will go on to win Super Bowl 15, and where Jim Plunkett would lead him to 1 more. So he had 2 Super Bowls under him to Ken Stabler's 1. And in his first season as field general with the Oilers, he passed for 3,202 yards. It was the second time in his career where he threw for more than 3,000 yards. Stabler would retire in the 1984 season with the Saints. His 59.85 career pass completion percentage was second only to Joe Montana who at the time had just played just 6 seasons. Stabler's 10 consecutive postseason games with a touchdown pass was also an NFL record. 30 of 15 NFL playing seasons, Stabler completed 2,270 passes for 27,938 yards and 194 touchdowns to 88 interceptions. Ken Stabler, on behalf of Steeler Nation and everyone watching in the history of this game, and one of the classic players in this game, especially at quarterback, I want to pay a salute to you and your family. Anyway, now let's get right into it. Keys to the game right here. And small sample size going into this game before we get to my first key. The Raiders didn't plan on using rookie defensive end Tyree Wilson this soon. Josh McDaniels was asked what he's seeing from Wilson. I still think we're in the phase of working towards where he ultimately will be. He's working hard at it the best he can. He was drafted out of Texas Tech with their seventh overall pick. In his career, he has compiled 76 tackles during his 4 seasons at Texas Tech, 1 season with Texas A&M, which also included 32 tackles for loss. He started heating up in his junior and senior seasons and was graded the second highest edge prospect behind Will Anderson of the Houston Texans, where he was drafted 3rd overall. So let's go ahead and go with key number 1 right there. I'm going to go ahead with stopping the pass rush. Why is that? Now, yes, the Raiders have not been able to generate any sacks, throughout the season when we look at it. And the Steelers, thus far right now, when you look at everything, excuse me, no, the Raiders have gotten 4 sacks. Let me take that back. Hold on one second. Sorry, guys. Let me just get this all straightened out. The Steelers right now, alarmingly, have allowed 7 sacks this year through 2 games, while the Vegas Raiders for tonight's game, for the most part, defensively, have only got they got 4 sacks. Excuse me, I just had to double check that. They've gotten 4 sacks so far. And who's been one of their sack leaders right now? So Robert Spillane, Diablo, Crosby, and Tillery. But again, when you look at a guy like, you know, for the most part, Tyree Wilson, I gotta believe he's got to be a huge presence in this lineup right there to help compile right now. With that offensive line breaking down as quickly as they are, they better be careful. So protecting against the pass rush will be number 1. And especially watch out for guys, like I mentioned too, in this game. I'll definitely be keeping out for a guy like Max Crosby right now, who has 2 quarterback hits, which leads his team right now, and he's got a tackle for loss. So he's going to be the presence right there to watch out for. Key number 2, stop and control the one. I keep saying this throughout most of my pregame shows. I'm going to continue to stick with this one. Josh Jacobs, who has been their bell call so far throughout his career with the Steelers since 2019, in his 5th season, he has amassed for 4,786 yards off of 1,100 attempts. He struck out of the gate early this season with 46 yards off of 28 attempts for 1.6 yards per attempt. Steelers will try to continue to get any footing out of the gate, being ranked 31st with 96 yards per 2 games this season off of 31 attempts. Need to see more of Jaylen Warren behind Najee Harris. Key number 3, happy feet for Kenny Pickett. Why is that? Like I said, the offensive line surrendering 7 sacks right there for 56 yards, while also you've been watching Kenny Pickett trying to throw some passes, through some lackadaisical passes where he's in the 2 to 3 touchdown to interception ratio. That is going to be important. Key number 4, Steelers defense backs. They're 4th in the league, completing 36 of 50 passes for 72%. That's got to change right there. Levi Wallace and Chandler Sullivan, in particular, have allowed 10 of 14 targets to be completed for a combined 71% right now. The Raiders have, like I said, they're 4th in the league with completion percentage right there. Those guys need to step in there right now. I wonder if we'll see a little bit more playing time, Joey Porter Jr. progressively. And last but not least, that's about it. And that's all I got for today. So it's actually 4 keys, and that's about it. But anyway, for this game, listen, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm probably anticipating a loss. I'm hoping to prove them to be wrong, but they can execute those things right there. Once again, it's going to be the protecting against the pass rush and the offensive line. They got to stop and control the run. Okay, Pickett's got to be calm by having happy feet for today's game. And then the Steelers, defensive backs. That's all I got for you today. Once again, you can follow me on my Twitter X content. You can follow at MetaSteelCGR and Instagram at MetaSteelNation. And I'll be looking to have another special guest on this week. I'll keep you posted. But as always, leave it. Don't be trolling. Be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I gone.
You know, this has been our story all year, hasn't it, man? 60 minutes. It's never going to be pretty. Throw style points out the window, but these guys will fight to the end. And I take my hat off to you, and I congratulate every last one of you.
Thank you for watching the Meta Steel podcast with your host, Charles Prodigy Richey, here on YouTube. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And for all the latest Meta Steel podcast episodes, feel free to download them on Mixcloud, Anchor.fm, and SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts.